Hello, everyone. My friend Louis Desarno and my name's Louis Damiani. We're back. We're going to talk more about the notebooks of Paul Brunton and specifically category one, which is overview of the quest. I'll show how it is all online on the PB website that the Paul Brunton Philosophic Foundation has created, but it's also in softback called The Quest. And this is category one of 28 categories. Paul Brunton, uh, PB affectionately, wrote extensively throughout his life, every day of his life. And you know, he lived from 1898 till 1981, so relatively contemporary, but he wrote a lot. And this first volume, The Quest, is over 350 pages long. It's a beautiful book and explores what it means to be the quest. What is the quest? And that's what Lewis and I are going to explore. We're going to dive right into some quotes and discuss them as we go along. Again, if you like it, let us know. But also leave your comments and questions in the question area and comment area, and we will respond to them. So without any further ado, I am going to share my screen and we're going to go right to the notebooks here. Do you see that, Lewis?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to just jump out because I want people to, again, to see this is the 28 categories. Each one is this one is a volume by itself, but there are many that have two of the categories. So in the published set, there's 16 volumes. So here we're talking about overview of the quest. We're going to go to overview of the quest. And then your quote was number 78 you wanted to discuss tonight and
Yes.
in chapter one. So we're going to slide down here to 78 and we could read and discuss it a little bit and then go on to the next. Okay, you still see that?
Yes. Very good.
All right.
So I'll go ahead and read it and then give some of my take on it. I've been thinking about it this last several days and meditating on it. And then I'll invite Lou in to give his take on it. And then maybe we'll just go back and forth for a few minutes on it. So here we go. He who stands on the threshold of this path is about to commence the last and greatest journey of all, one which he will continue to the end of his days. Once begun, there is no turning back or deserting it, except temporarily. And since it is the most important and most glorious activity ever undertaken, its rewards are commensurate. So I found this quote very appealing. I mean, I think for me, what PB's stating here is something very, he's very declarative here in saying this is the last and greatest journey that the human being can take. So that's quite a claim. I mean, if you think about it, and after studying PB and others of his caliber and background, I really trust that he knows what he speaks of. So he's saying this is the last and greatest journey for those of us who enter it. And why would that be? Well, he's saying that because it is so comprehensive, so complete, it becomes what he would call the ultimate path. There's nothing that could be more inclusive in terms of what it's asking the aspirant to take on and to develop in themselves. So it's really a quote about fulfilling what it means to be a human being. And he's saying that we can't, in some sense, we can't ignore any of our qualities, any of our faculties. They all have to be brought up to some kind of full, complete development. So all other paths, in his view, there are many, many paths that we could go down. We could be a complete mystic for a lifetime or two or three. We could be a religious devotee. We could be a monastic. But in this quote, PB saying no, those things are included in what he wants us to understand as the last of the last journey that we will take. Because this last one, again, it includes all aspects of what a human being has as a potential to develop. So I think that's one. I feel this statement by PB is one of the most complete in terms of what he wants us. He wants our perspective to be as wide as it can possibly be as we begin this quest. And the quest that he's referring to is the philosophic spiritual quest. So with that, I'll invite Lou in to see what he's come away with on this quote, and then maybe we'll dialogue a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and so uh, I think this quote speaks specifically to what you say is the philosophic quest. I don't think all, and I know I'm trying to stay right on this quote, but I don't think all the quotes in this volume are this level of the philosophic quest, because I think many aspects of the quest are on these other lower,
Right, right.
there's you could have everybody is on the quest in some way,
Yeah,
consciously or unconsciously. Everybody is, in a Jungian sense, the path of individuation, and mythological sense, the quest of the Holy Grail, for example. And all mythologies and stories have this journey. But in this quote, I agree with you that um, he, it means to some extent that you've done the other aspects of this quest, and
right.
now you're on this last aspect of philosophic uh, quest or philosophic mysticism. And so can be seen that way. And if it is that, I think it's very elevated, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I think we could say a few. I could mention a few things like when he's talking about the completion of, or the fulfillment of what a human has as potential. He's talking about faculties like thinking. The thinking faculty, the reasoning faculty has to be really, really well developed. Then the feelings, the evaluative function, the appreciation of beauty in all of its forms and all of the ways that can be appreciated. So the feeling function has to be fully raised and elevated and fulfilled. And then finally, we talk about willing, the actual ability to put things into practice, to actually do in the world what you need to do. And no matter what the challenge is, the will is there once it's really fully developed, as much as possible within the human being. Now we have these three cosmic faculties: thinking, feeling, and willing. He's going to include those. And the other thing I think we have to think, PB's talking about a human being that is fully engaged in living. So this is not a monastic. Monasticism may have been a part of the path for a part of it, like Lou was saying. There are quotes where he'll talk about retreats and dropping out of activity for a period of time, or maybe even for a lifetime for some people. But in this quote, he wants us to understand we want to fulfill what it means to be human, and that includes full engagement in life and all the possible ways of engagement. And of course, we're talking about, a civilized or refined kind of engagement. So it's a rare quote in terms of what it's inclusive, what it means to be a full human, and to fulfill the quest in the way that he's he's mentioning in this particular quote.
Yeah, I think you're seeing more there than I am. I'm not
Mhm.
saying you're wrong. I'm just not seeing his talk of a full human or the development of thinking, willing, and feeling. I'm not seeing that. He's saying this is an ultimate quest. Does it could mean, well, you've consummated the path of yoga and can go, and you've consummated the path, other paths, religious, mystical, etc. But I think we generally agree that this is an elevated quote on the quest. You're just, I think, including more than I see in this quote, but that's me.
Well, I agree. I mean, I'm adding some things that I feel come from, other areas of his writings. I'm bringing up now
Yeah.
because I think they're implicit. They're not. You're right. They're not explicit in this particular quote, but I think
Okay.
they're fully implicit. And I just wanted to mention a few of these things just so people get a sense of what PB means by a fullness, by a completion, by comprehensiveness. And he's not looking for monks and nuns. He's looking for a fully engaged human being as a philosopher. And anyway,
Yeah.
I think we've done a pretty good job of exploring some of the implications, at least in this quote.
Yeah, I do too. We'll go to another quote. And let's see. I'm gonna just where I wanted to go on this was because we're dealing with uh, oh let me share screen here first. Um, so I'm going to share. So here we are back in this volume, overview of the quest. I'm going to go way down here and books as teachers. And I think this is really important. Um, and because, and there's so much to be said on this. And again, he spends a lot of time exploring aspects of the quest. And I just want to say, up front that yes, if you can find a personal teacher, that's great. But for many of us, books act as guides and teachers, even if we have the opportunity to have a personal teacher. And some of us, and I think Paul Brunton promotes it greatly, is a comparative approach to this. It's never sectarian. He doesn't say don't do that, but it's not his mode. So if you want to be a Hindu or a Buddhist or, a Christian, whatever, any of that is fine. But his approach is comparative, which is one of the things that really, I think for Lou and I, but I'll speak for myself, really, I like. It invites me in. And so I'm going to go with this quote 100. The very fine writings of philosophers and mystics of all times may bring into one's life some emotional, inspirational, and intellectual guidance, even possibly stimulating his power of will. Through the long, unavoidable years of struggle on the quest, they can, to that extent, act the part of a teacher or guide. However, it must be remembered that some are infinitely more worthwhile than others, and it is essential for one to be able to discriminate between what is true and helpful and what is false and worthless. And I would add, and everything in between. So I think that quote is, first of all, if we study the annals of philosophy and mysticism, East and West, or either, or just in one tradition, Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism or Islam, any of these, we will find that from, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of years, the writings of philosophers and mystics and sacred literature um, can bring real inspiration, direction, and with the right attitude, guidance through these this labyrinth of understanding. But the question comes right from this quote. Well, how do we tell what's true from what's false? How do we know that this is the truth or that's not? And so, a lot of teachings from different traditions will tell you you have to have faith and believe, and PB is also, you have to have that too. But if you read his book, The Hidden Teaching Beyond Yoga, which is really a book on not only the epistemology of our everyday experience, but also it is a book on how, and this is so important in every facet of life. How do I learn to truly think, critically think? How do I separate what is true from what is false? How do I use reason? And how do I use intuition? And how do I find the books that best guide me and that I can work? So I think it's a complicated quote, but yet most of us are stuck with books as our guidance. And we have to work through uh, the pages, the quotes, and what I think Lewis and I are trying to bring out over time here is that a great deal of guidance, a great deal of the different aspects of this quest uh, within the writings of Paul Brunton, they are a great help. It's he doesn't go into this in the quote, but it is one of the finest expressions in the English language of the perennial doctrine, in my opinion, and that these quotes, along with other writings, I'm not saying only this. I'm really suggesting a comparative approach to look at our life and the investigation of truth on what is called, as you were speaking, the philosophic quest, but I would also widen it and call it the spiritual quest, um, because it is a search for our true self, our true identity, and true knowledge. And so I think, um, I don't know, what are your thoughts, Lou? I could
Well,
bring it up again if you want.
I would like to see it again, but I think others may like to revisit it, but I can talk a little bit if you want. I certainly agree with all of what you've been saying about this quote. So he talks about it, these great writings from these great philosophers and mystics can provide emotional inspiration, intellectual guidance, even stimulating the will sometimes. So the value of books, of the right kinds of books and the right authorities, the right authors, can be a tremendous aid on this quest. And as Lou mentioned, Paul Brunton for us has been very helpful. We're certainly not exclusively studying Paul Brunton's writings. He certainly is one of the most important of the authors of this perennial philosophy that we've studied. But we've looked into many other traditions and writings of authors from those traditions in that comparative way that Lou mentioned, that is so important, and PB advocates very strongly that you on the one hand you have to approach a text that you pick up to study with a certain amount of sympathy. You're sympathetic to the author, at least temporarily. I think that's fair. Give the author or the tradition a fair hearing, and try to put aside all of your or our presuppositions, our attitudes about what we're pursuing, what we're trying to take in from someone's book. Now, at some point, obviously, our thinking ability, our reasoning ability has to keep developing and keep becoming stronger and more discriminating in terms of its ability to evaluate the worth or the truth of a particular text. Now, that's something that's not going to be there up front. It's going to take time to develop that. But I think one of the reasons Lou and I wanted to do these talks was we have found so much value in Paul Brunton, and he is a great basis to launch your search from, but not to be obviously limited to him, but let him fill you with a perspective, or help form a perspective that then you can approach almost any other tradition or author, and it'll be very helpful. So that's one thing I wanted to get out. And I think the other point that Lou was emphasizing is this, the need to be comparative. And why is comparative approach a strong way to approach the truth and our own spiritual development? Well, if you think about it, one of the things that's being demanded of us in this search for truth and in deepening our own spiritual nature is we have to keep ridding ourselves of all this baggage that we picked up along the way, from culture, from our families, from our religion, from our surroundings, in all different ways. Our education is very biased in some ways, and you pick up all these ideas and all these attitudes that can be obstructive in terms of a pursuit of truth. And I think we could mention here that we almost have to become real scientists and employ that scientific method to really approach what we want to get to in terms of the truth. So it's going to be an uphill, struggle, but there are these great authors, PB being one, that can really get us prepared for the search. And I think, that's what I had to say about it, Lou. And I
No, that's really good, and I agree. And again, 28 categories, thousands of pages. We are not saying, he is not saying that the words we are discussing are the truth, but they are pointers. And the other thing about Paul Brunton's writings is they might not appear scholarly. You look at many fine writers, and they're full of footnotes and quotations. Paul Brunton has done his research. There is, but he has expressed it for the layperson. That was what he was trying to do. But he's always pointing towards various doctrines, various books, um, as help you to unfold your own latent knowing faculty.
Mhm.
It's always,
Mhm.
pointing inwards to that true reality. And yet we're looking for the books and the sages of past and present that can help us in this quest, in this search. Um,
Yeah.
but with that, we'll move to another quote. Again, I'm gonna share screen, and let's see. So um, I just keep going back because I'm hoping viewers will really start to learn their own way around this amazing website. Now we're going to go back to your quote was in the first um, chapter, and I think it was 166. So,
That's correct.
um,
That's correct.
and so we're going to go down here, and here we are with 166. Um, and I'm going to, then you can just click on that, and it'll bring that quote up with nothing else. And here is 166 in the first chapter of the volume on the quest. So with that, go ahead, Lou.
Thank you, Lou. And I'll read this and then I'll make some comments and invite Lou in later. So, quote, there is nothing more important in life than the quest. And the time will come when the student discovers that there is nothing more enjoyable as well. This is inevitable in a quest whose essential nature is one of infinite harmony and unbroken peace. No worldly object, person, or pleasure can ever bestow the satisfaction experienced in uniting with the overself. So again, these quotes, this tone in the last, the previous quote and now in this quote, this tone of PB saying this is the final, this is the ultimate, this particular journey is what we all need. We're all striving to enter at some point, whether consciously or unconsciously, as Lou mentioned earlier. That this is coming down the home stretch as a human being, as a truth seeker, as a spiritual being. And here PB's talking about how could we conceive of anything grander than infinite harmony and infinite harmony and undying peace, however he spoke of it there, unbroken peace, which comes, as he says, this will come with the uniting with the overself. Now, the quest, we have to be clear. In this quote, he takes us all the way to the experience of uniting with the overself. And that's when these possibilities of infinite harmony and unbroken peace are realized. Before that uniting with the overself, there's going to be, as we talked about in the previous YouTube, there's going to be struggles. There's going to be allurements. There's going to be enmities from people and circumstances in the world. So the quester who's on this quest, who's on this journey, it's going to be like any long range journey, whether it's, the outward journeys that anyone could take. There are going to be obstacles. There's going to be difficulties. You're going to get exhausted. You may go off the path for a while. You may lose your way for a while. But what PB's saying in this quote is what you're headed toward, what you're going to finally achieve. And we can't say when. There's no way of predicting when. It might be this life and it might be several lifetimes down the road. But the point is, what you've entered on, according to PB, is this amazingly satisfying final realization where you unite with the overself. And then the infinite peace and the undying and the unbroken peace will manifest. And that's the completion of this quest. But just to know that this is offered as a quest is, to me, kind of miraculous. It's kind of a grace in a way that someone is pointing this out, as PB does, and not only PB, the Buddha, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. There's many texts that you will find a similar description of why this is worth entering, no matter how hard it is, because this is the final. At the end of it, the rewards are commensurate with the difficulty. Lou, if you have.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I'm glad you mentioned, obviously in the Bhagavad Gita and uniting with Krishna, or in the Hindu tradition, Atma in the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha nature, in the Christian tradition, the Christ nature. But in the way of Ralph Waldo Emerson calling it the oversoul in his writings,
Mhm.
PB coins this term, the overself. And even though we're bringing it in this initial conversation, there is category 22 out of the 28 categories where he specifically goes into this idea of the overself.
Mm.
Even just the idea of it is one thing, the experience is another, and then the full identification with this is still another. And this quote, I think in the quotes you're picking out, you're going right to the top. And that's fine because I think it gives a scope of the whole quest. And but so I think they're beautiful. And just to share that again, um, I think just to share that quickly again, I even think without going to the last sentence, bestow the satisfaction experienced in uniting with the overself. Uh, there is a point in life with there in the first sentence, there is nothing more important in life than the quest. And I think, part of this journey, this desire to fathom the depths of who we are, what the world is, if there is a God, what our relationship, and again, when we use these words, we have to over time, and part of our hope is over time to unfold some of these meanings, have discussion with people who might have some interest in this. Um, but I think there's a beautiful quote in pointing towards the quest in its full integral um, expansive nature and ending in unification with that divine element in us. I think as we go on too, there will be distinctions in that category 22 of glimpses of the overself and a distinction between uniting with the overself. And I think that's an important distinction, but it's not specifically in this quote.
Yeah, I like what you're bringing out, Lewis, especially the idea that, first of all, this quote is trying to introduce and point out the perspective that an aspirant should hold about why the quest is the most important journey that any human could ever take. So now we have to come to this, maybe over a long time of exploration. It may take years of study and consideration and exploration and discussions where it may take, as I said, many years to actually come to the conclusion that PB's offering here in this quote, where he's saying the quest is the most important thing in life. Now, and then when that finally dawns on us, and I think Lou and I share this to some extent, I think it has dawned on us at some point in our lives. I don't know the exact year, the exact hour, but at some point you come to this kind of epiphany or this realization that, you know what, I have to live in this world. I have to pay my taxes and do my work, whatever my work may be. But around that, it's really around the central part of my life, which is the quest. The quest is what is kind of the central point upon which all the other stuff has to circulate and in some ways bow to. Now, it's not an easy thing to have, your life sort of structured in that way. But when you begin to appreciate the value of the spiritual quest, of the quest for truth and our own deepest nature, it just becomes a kind of certainty that you operate with. And then your life will organize itself in a way that you can begin to really pursue the quest in all the ways possible, and
Yeah.
yet live your life and still live your life, have a family, have a profession.
And you can denude it of all religious trappings if you so choose,
Yes,
or you could stay within a religion if you so choose. The quest is not um, necessarily in and through a religion. And I also want to add that some of the obstacles that you were talking about uh, can even come from, your personal relations. Everybody is not necessarily, wants to get on this road. And, we have to go through a certain amount of failures or sufferings or maturing. I think it can be likened to Jung's, uh, path of individuation. But I think
yeah.
there are also differences, and I don't want the two to seem, the same. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't think they're equivalent, but I think there's a lot of parallels. I think Young's path and what he's offering is certainly a big step on the way that and very parallel in many ways with PB. But I think PB takes a further step. He introduces a whole other dimension beyond what Young offers. But that's
Yeah,
another
because
discussion.
you would not necessarily even talk about consciousness in itself,
Right.
and hopefully we'll explore some of that more. But we'll move on to the next quote. And
Absolutely.
all right, again, I'm gonna share. So again, go back arrow again, and it'll take me right out. Now, the next quote is, let's see here. Where was that? It was 245. Uh, uh, so again, I'll go out. So it's within self-development, and it's in knowing and working within one's limitations.
Yes.
245, right? And it's
Yes.
just a simple little quote, and yet uh, I think it's packed. And so the size of the quote doesn't necessarily indicate the depth of the idea. Um, and I really like this, and I have to, especially after years of studying some of these texts we're talking about, and we all do it, but the quote is simple enough. Begin by admitting that you know really little or nothing about your deeper mind. That is better than learn tall talk. Pretty simple. And yet, what pops into my mind, and we can hear many learned people expound on spiritual topics and traditions and et cetera, and et cetera, but the great master of Athens, Socrates. And why was he the most knowledgeable man in Athens? Because he knew he didn't know. Now, we can explore that, but to approach these studies with that attitude, with the attitude of mystery and wonder and an open mind and an open heart, um, allows maybe something to come in. And so it's just for me a simple quote, but it's also a reminder in the face of this great mystery of something deeper than thought can encapsulate, because we live in the realm of thought and sensation. And by thought, I'm including emotion and sensation and everything we can talk about. Uh, and yet, that cannot grasp this deeper mind. That cannot encapsulate it. At best, it can point to it. And so we have to pull back with head hung in humility, um, seeking for this deeper knowledge, sometimes finding it and sometimes being with it. And I don't know. I'll leave it there, Lou. Thoughts?
Well, I think you've captured much of it for me, and I think it implies that we have to find a way to humble ourselves, or humble our thought, our attitude that we know something very profound already, or that we know something of the truth already. We have to admit, I think he's telling us, we really have to admit to ourselves that we know very little for certainty. Because we live in this realm of thought, and the thought is really basically opinion. Now, sometimes there's very good, accurate opinion about things in the world and in our lives that we certainly need and we can live by. But the kind of certainty that PB's implying here, that is the certainty upon, coming upon truth and knowing when you're in it, is going to require that we empty ourselves of the attitude that we know anything very deeply or very completely yet. So it's almost, again, he's suggesting the cultivation of a kind of scientific method where we keep stripping away the idea that we really know anything. And I like the example you used of Socrates. He was thought the wisest man in Athens because he came to the realization that he didn't know anything for sure. Not with the ordinary mind, with the thought mind, the thinking mind. It can give you a lot. It can help you a lot get through life. But as far as really comprehending or really directly knowing the truth about yourself, the world, and the divine, we really have to humble ourselves about that issue and hopefully allow the great teachers, the great minds, the great traditions to help us take in the wisdom that they're offering. Without emptying our own vessel of what we think we know, we can't really take in this great wisdom.
And if we can empty that vessel, the pure awareness, the um, pure intelligence um, might fill us with more than all the books in the world can. But we have to, and going back to Socrates, um, for him to say that, see, I can, many people can say, I know, I don't know, but it's opinion. You can also get to that position by truly knowing that thought cannot give the answer to what is beyond it. Thought, and this is part of what I see on so many conversations on non-duality on YouTube and other places, especially with a lot of philosophers, that thought cannot grasp its source, awareness. And if it does, it has to still itself. And so this pure awareness uh, that the wise are pointing to as the true nature of the self or of who we truly are, this pure awareness, thought can't know. And so to know that thought can't know that, and so to say, I know I don't know, it's saying I know I don't know by thought.
Right, right.
Because to truly know that, you have to know the true awareness. But we'll explore this because it's so rich and deep in the discussions of non-duality, awareness, mind, consciousness, and we look forward to the discussions. Is there anything you want to say in closing, Lou? Or
No, I think we've done a good exploration of these pairs, and especially this last one. Um, Again, I think PB's really suggesting a kind of humility that we have to cultivate. It's probably not something that comes easily for many of us who've had some education. You know, if you've gone to college or gone into some kind of real professional demanding position in life, you may have a certain amount of arrogance, you may have a certain amount of confidence in what you know, and PB saying, well, in this particular sphere of the pursuit of truth, of philosophic and spiritual truth, we really need to humble ourselves and admit just how little we know. So I think that point has been emphasized in our discussion, and of course in the quote, it's obvious. But yeah, I think that's a good
Okay, amen. Thank you for visiting, watching it. Please feel free to leave suggestions or comments. Uh, we'll leave the numbers of the quotes below and the website. And also, if you like this kind of stuff, subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps us. So with that, we thank you for sharing this, and good night.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you.